What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam, and I'm your show host over here at Fall Obsession. Thanks for tuning in. This week, my guest is a fellow show host and CarbonTV producer, Miss Kristy Titus. She is the host of the TV show Pursue the Wild, Wyld and Uncut podcast, and a newer show, Our Wyld Life. And she lives up there in Wyoming and is on the show to share a bunch of experiences from hunting up there, her hunting and outdoor industry journey, and talk a little bit about just having a show and having a podcast and the grind that comes with that. So, and this is right on the heels of another episode where I recorded with Kurt Geyer, the host of the Working Class Bowhunter podcast. So it wasn't planned that way to have two podcast show host on our show in consecutive weeks, but that's just kind of how it worked out and how it fell. And it was super awesome just to get to sit down with Kristy and get to know her, get to talk to her a little bit about her journey and her life in the hunting and outdoor world. But before we get to the episode, I won't wait any longer to hit up our sponsors and our partners real quick. Hoot Camo is the first one. They're our flagship sponsor for this podcast. The guys down here at Hoot have built a product and a brand that, in my opinion, is second to none. They do a great job making and building high quality camo patterns and camouflage gear. I wore their gear last year in Colorado, in Texas, in a wide variety of environments and conditions, and I can honestly say that the gear held up and performed just absolutely phenomenally. To this day, there's still not a loose thread on any of my Hoot Camo gear, and I have put that stuff through the ringer. The pattern is extremely versatile and offers a lot in a lot of different environments. And we have some reviews on our YouTube channel and our pages and stuff about the gear if you're curious. But for the time being, you can go to hootcamo.com and check them out, see what all they got going on. And if you guys decide that you want to place an order or even just get some everyday wear if you're not going to get a full set of gear, you can use the code FallObsession15 at checkout, and that's going to save you guys some money. Definitely recommend you go check them out. If you look at their prices, you guys will see that to get into a good, high-quality set of camouflage, you're not going to be able to do it much more affordably than you can with Hoot Camo. So, Hoot Camo, go check them out. Another podcast partner is Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Derek and Lacey over there in Mississippi, they book hunts with vetted and trusted outfitters across the country. Derek has a large network of guys that he himself would hunt with. He wouldn't be affiliated with them if he wouldn't. So if you're looking to book that next hunt, that once-in-a-lifetime experience, or maybe just something different for this year, give Derek a call. He'll work with you on all the details and find something that works for your wants and your needs. Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Derek Eves is the man. Go check them out. The Outdoor Call radio app is another podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app for hunters and outdoorsmen that you guys can download on any device where you can stream outdoor shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession podcast playing on that loop on Mondays, the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. So go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately, and be sure that you follow Outdoors Dan on social media, especially Facebook. He does a couple of live radio broadcasts at local Midwest stations every week. And even if you're not local to those stations, you can still catch those live broadcasts on his Facebook Live. He shares them on there. So be sure that you guys go download the Outdoor Call radio app and go follow Outdoors Dan on social media. Finally, I want to thank you guys again for listening to another Fall Obsession podcast. If you guys are not following us over here at Fall Obsession already, please go do so. We are on all major social media platforms, as well as Go Wild, which is a censorship-free little tongue twister there, censorship-free social media platform. You can catch all of our content on fallobsession.com. Everything filters through there, and it links to everything. And stream our hunting shows and our podcast on CarbonTV as well. Not just our podcast, but Texas Dirt, Midwest Mindset, Couch Chats. Those are all shows that are streaming on there. And be sure that you check out Kristy's show as well, Pursue the Wyld. She's on Carbon TV also. And finally, if you guys by any chance are affiliated with your own hunting and outdoor brand or organization that you represent, and you think you might be interested in affiliating yourself with our podcast and promoting your brand through this segment, you guys are more than welcome to reach out to us. Go to fallobsession.com/podcast. There's a form on there that you guys can fill out. That'll put you in touch with us. We'll talk details and get you squared away. All right, with that, I'm done rambling, and we're heading over to our conversation with Kristy Titus from Pursue the Wyld and Wyld and Uncut podcast. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. My name is Sam. I'm your show host, and I am joined this week by another podcast host herself. She also has a hunting show on Carbon TV and is the Pursuit channel as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Miss Kristy Titus is my guest this week. Welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's going to be a lot of fun. My fellow Carbon TV producer. I love it.
Yeah.
Supporting each other is super cool.
Yeah, we're both in the Carbon TV family, and we're going to get into talking about some of the stuff that you got going on and everything. But yeah, the Carbon TV world is pretty awesome, and the folks over there, we've been working with them for about a year and a half now, and I'm blown away by the family aspect and everything over there. They do an awesome job. I can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah, they're super. Jules is super great and a good friend, and yeah, it's a great place to be part of. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. A great platform, a great place for anybody to go watch or listen to podcasts, watch shows, whatever, in a ton of different varieties in the outdoor and hunting world. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But Kristy, for our listeners,
yeah, uncensored content. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that's I'm sure you are well aware. Just it's so difficult now on the normal platforms to get anything going or to grow organically, and Carbon TV and some other we've learned of some other organizations. We've become involved with some other platforms, but Carbon TV especially is it's awesome that they the way they're structured, and that's not even in the back of your mind on their platform is refreshing in today's day and age for sure. So Kristy, just to kind of kick things off for our listeners and on our show here and everything, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background into hunting and where this journey into the outdoor industry started for you.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I've always been in the outdoors from the time I was 2 years old. I was packing mules into the backcountry with my family. Still do to this day. I've got 8 mules and 2 horses, and I live in Wyoming, and just love experiencing Western big game hunting. And I feel like I get to live a very blessed life for that. And somewhere along the line, I turned it into a career. I don't know, kind of a long story there, but yeah, now host and produce a show called Pursue the Wyld. This year I'm filming, I think, season 8.
Oh, wow.
Just crazy to think about. So I've been in production since my first airing year was 2017. Prior to that, I co-hosted the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation T-Milk TV show for 5 seasons with them of their 6 seasons. So yeah, it's been a really great ride. And prior to that, I hosted another TV show for 1 season. So I've been full-time doing outdoor TV for almost 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
going on 14 years.
So 14 years ago, this industry was a lot different than it is today. How did you get plugged in at that time with the shows, and how did everything how did everything progress in the very beginning for you as you were beginning to host TV shows in the hunting industry?
Well, I think everybody has kind of like their own unique journey. And, looking back, I never had any intention of being a TV host. I mean, that wasn't a goal for me. Instagram wasn't a thing. We obviously Facebook was around, but I mean, it just wasn't what it is today. I mean, media changes every 6 minutes, it feels like. But, when I started with more of like a philanthropic desire. So I was working with an SCI chapter. I became, from a volunteer to chapter president. I went to Washington, D.C. with SCI and lobbied in my early 20s. So I've been involved in SCI for nearing 20 years now. Not to date myself too much, but that's how long I've been doing it. And part of SCI, most of the money is kept locally. And so you give 30% of your largest fundraiser to corporate and the rest stays within local outreach projects. So I had the opportunity as a chapter president to really coordinate and organize a lot of really cool things with those chapter funds to serve my community. And so I would organize, GPS clinics and survival clinics and land navigation clinics and pistol training clinics and like all of these things that my community had an interest in learning and could really serve and utilize some of those humanitarian education and funds through SCI that we raised. And then it went on from there to I started with a women's clothing company called She Outdoor Apparel, and I helped them kind of rebrand from She Safari to She Outdoor Apparel. I actually constructed the logo that they're using today, helped them rebrand that company, and Bass Pro ended up acquiring that brand a few years later. I helped Under Armour launch their women's hunt division originally, helped them launch their clothing line, and so I've been instrumental in all of that kind of fun clothing and merchandise side. But what really kind of spearheaded my career is because of what I was doing in the textile market. I was going around and doing seminars around the West to a lot of different local retailers and dealers. And I would be like, hey, if you guys book my clothes, I'll come and do seminars for women and get, consumers in your store, customers in your store, women in your store, men in your store. And it just kind of turned into a career, which led me to relentlessly harassing the folks at Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation into putting me on their TV show because they didn't have a female elk hunter or that presence. It was just lacking in what they were doing in media. And they gave me an opportunity. They put me on one hunt, one season, and then I co-hosted that show for 5 years after that, and primarily served as like as a host. I mean, I took other women, I took kids hunting. It wasn't like about me. It was about the journey and stories of other people. And my job was to, kind of help produce those segments. And then I ended up with my own show. So it's just kind of like gone from bananas. So it really wasn't like, I didn't really think I was ever going to be in TV. I just wanted to sell clothes. I wanted to have, women have a better hunting experience. And I wanted them to feel welcome in a space that, women were in, but obviously it wasn't where it's at today.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So what have been some of since you transitioned into having your own show, what have been some of the big learning curves or the big hurdles that you've had to overcome in, now being not just somebody on a show, but it's yours?
Well, I don't know. I guess I really haven't had any learning curves. Number one, I've gotten great advice from mentors along the way. And so I think, when you launch any business or get into anything, you should always have, good people to talk to. And Randy Newberg was a really good mentor of mine. And then obviously having hosted outdoor TV for, 5 seasons, I understood how television worked and how the business aspect of television and media operated. And so I had, just because I had the guidance of working with the Team Elk TV show, I really understood how to make it work and how to build a good brand. And so it's been pretty easy for me. And, the first SHOT Show I went to in 2017, and asked for partnerships, and I had a pilot and I had a business plan. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people, neglect to realize is you have to have a business plan.
Yeah.
And so I went with that, and I've been doing this professionally, like full time, literally going on 14 years now.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely something that gets overlooked, I feel like, because we're going to more trade shows and that kind of stuff, trying to put boots on the ground and make an impact in that, and talking to people, talking to partners, all that kind of stuff. And I remember I would go to trade shows even just like 5 years ago, and not really with a plan or anything in mind, and just kind of wander around, and I felt like I was wasting time, basically. And now it's amazing the difference that it makes when you show up and you have your ducks in a row and you have everything squared away. So, and that's just the business side of it. You don't just have a physical or virtual thing that people can watch or listen to, but you have to be able to, represent it from a business standpoint on the back end to all these other people. And that's what some people who are just dipping their toes, as I've learned the hard way, there's some people that are just dipping their toes into the content creation world, and that's kind of the bridge that's left to cross, it seems like.
Yeah, it is. And it is it's a business, and that's a lot of people call it the hunting industry, quote unquote, and they get super offended by that. But at the end of the day, it is to some degree an industry, and obviously a business. And a lot of people are in the industry to make a living. And that can be from the manufacturing side to, to being a personality.
Yeah.
And there's a place for and space for so many people and so many avenues of that. But for me, it's a lifestyle. It's not like if I weren't hosting a show or doing outdoor TV, like nothing in my life would change. I would still be doing the same things I'm doing now. Just, I obviously can't imagine that.
Yeah.
But my life wouldn't change.
So do you, and I like to ask other people who have their shows or create content, whatever it might be for, the given individual, I like to ask them this. Do you ever feel like when you're out there hunting or you're filming your show or you're doing all these things, do you ever wish that you just didn't have a camera and you can just be out there doing it without any worries?
I don't know. I've been doing it for so long with a camera that I don't even think twice about it anymore.
Yeah.
And my camera people that I hire, they're good people. And they're people I want to be around. Obviously, or I wouldn't hire them.
Right.
We have a good time. And so it makes the work of it a lot easier. But at the end of the day, I run a really, really robust production schedule. So when I'm in the field, I'm not just thinking about the success of the hunt. I'm looking at photography assets and media assets and reels and content creation. And so a lot of it is so much more than just, the harvest or trying to have a successful hunt. It's taking into account, okay, well, we have an hour before the animals get out of their bed and start moving. So what can we utilize this time for to create content or, serve our brand partners the best? And so just making sure, you keep it a business in the field is important. But to me, I've just been doing it for so long that it just is kind of second nature,
Yeah, I get that. Talk to me about the podcast. Where did the inspiration for that come from? Because you're already plugged in on the TV side of everything, but then where'd the podcast come from?
That's Randy Newberg also. So when I started doing my own show, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was on Outdoor Channel, and they were launching their own network. And they, kind of pulled me aside and they said, look, Kristy, we're going to pull away from traditional TV and we're going to start this digital network. And this is an opportunity, if you're interested, to maybe create something that's your own. And, we want to invite you on this space, and we want to include you in that and continue our partnership, but just change, how that looks. And so I went to Randy Newberg for advice because at the time he was the only content creator that was doing media in that digital space kind of full time. So,
Right.
Outdoor Channel, all these Pursuit, Sportsman's Channel were really still the big gorilla in the room, and everybody was all in on those. And there wasn't a lot of people on the YouTube side, if you will, or, and so, Randy gave me some great advice. I followed his advice. I literally spent an hour on the phone with Randy and developed my entire business plan around Randy's advice and followed it to this day. I still follow it. And, you know, a couple of years ago, Randy pulled me aside and he's like, Kristy, what are you doing? Your show's great, but you're not doing a podcast. Why aren't you doing a podcast? And I'm like, gosh, Randy, you know, you're right. Like, I'm at these events, I'm in front of these incredible people. Why not capitalize on those opportunities and share those relationships with, you know, everybody out there, whether it be, you know, hunt success or failures, or, you know, interesting people that I get to meet and talk to. And at some point, you know, I think, you know, you kind of take for granted the relationships and the friendships that we're privileged to have in this space, and you know, the opportunity to talk with people. Like, I mean, I shoot for bear archery, and I get to talk to Chuck Adams for advice on my bow setup. I mean, how many people get to do that? And so it's been just a real big blessing for me to be able to capitalize on some of those opportunities that I have and share them with other people. And so I followed Randy's advice a second time and launched the Wyld and Uncut podcast.
That's awesome. And you have one other show, correct?
Yeah. So last year, you know, this whole like lifestyle, unedited, like unfiltered shows are like super popular. So I started our Wyld Life, which is basically just a cell phone filmed show. I filmed it on my phone, of my life on my farm, on my ranch in Wyoming. I guess in Wyoming, they don't really call it a ranch because it's only 255 acres. They call it a pasture. So
that's a ranch where I come from.
Yeah, it's not a ranch here. So anyway, so I just, you know, we filmed that and just bring to viewers that. I kind of put that on pause a little bit last fall because it's hard to produce that while I'm also producing the mainline TV show. So that's more of something like a spring summer project where I film that series, and then into the fall I just roll into the traditional Pursue the Wyld series. So it is a little complicated, all of the things that we have going on from a media standpoint, but they all kind of have their place with viewership and consumership, and it's been really fun.
No, I completely get that. We got tons of different shows on our end just as a brand. The podcast is weekly, and then we have 2 different habitat management shows in different parts of the country, and then we have a casual staff inspired podcast, almost like a virtual or video podcast on Carbon. And it's just, we have all these different things going, and I'm the same way. I meet with multiple times a week. I'm meeting with, you know, our team and everything, and talking about what we're rolling out, you know, that week or next week or whatever it is. And so I understand the juggle for sure. And it's awesome to be able to do that many things, you know, or for you to be able to share both the lifestyle and the hunting side of everything. That's cool. Yeah. And it seems like you've broken it down pretty good as far as summer versus fall, and when you can dedicate time to those things. I imagine that's a healthy balance.
Yeah, like right now, you know, yesterday I was out riding mules with my dad. We picked up a shed horn on my place, and I'll be focusing this spring on organizing gear, getting guns dialed, you know, training with my firearms, training my mules, you know, just ranching, basically, you know, putting in fences, doing whatever. And, you know, roll that into, you know, summer scouting. Turkey season's a month away, so I'll start turkey hunting in a month. Then I'll roll right into bear baiting. I'll start bear baiting in April, which actually I need to put that on my list because I got to go make sure I get my bear bait reserved this week. So yeah, going into bear baiting, and then from there, I mean, it just, you know, kind of rolls out. Yeah.
So as a Wyoming resident, what kind of resident hunting opportunities do y'all have? Because to be honest, I'm not well acquainted with anybody who lives in Wyoming. I know the very minimum about just, you know, from the non-resident side of everything, but what's it like being a resident and all the hunting opportunities Wyoming has?
Well, Wyoming is so windy, so nobody would ever want to move here. But so as a resident, I think Wyoming is the best state in the United States to live for hunting opportunity, which is why I live here. Plus, you know, it's a lot of very remote terrain, and Wyoming is really kind of culturalistic, where they really want to preserve the heritage of that backcountry hunter and that legacy type of hunting. So it's very friendly for, mules and horses. And so with me having been raised with mules and horses and packing into the backcountry, like being in Wyoming is just a big win for me, because it's easy I can pack in 15 miles in 4.5 hours when somebody else is going to like die trying to go into some of the places I'm going into on foot, and I can go in and out I have this shuttle or the ultimate in 4-wheel, make it just so easy for me. I've got a great string of animals. So that's one of the great things for me. But, looking at it, we have a fantastic spring turkey season. We have beautiful Merriam's turkeys here. We have spring black bear hunting, which the fantastic thing about spring black bear in Wyoming is we get the opportunity to bait. And, my former state, you could not bait bears. So they were all spot and stock. So here we have this fantastic opportunity to bait bears, really selectively harvest those animals. And I can get that tag every year. So those are 2 spring opportunities. I roll into antelope season in August for archery, and I can get an antelope tag every year as a resident in Wyoming. I get a general elk, a general deer tag as a resident in Wyoming. If I don't fill those tags archery season, any of the species, antelope, elk, or mule deer, then I can roll those into rifle season. And my mule deer tag is also good for whitetail. It's just considered a general deer tag.
Yeah.
So I could shoot either a whitetail or a mule deer during that general season. And then as a Wyoming resident, you can often get a secondary second buck for a second whitetail tag for later in the fall and starting in November. So I have another opportunity again to harvest whitetail deer in November. And then you roll into predator season. We can hunt mountain lions with dogs. So, it literally, like the hunting in Wyoming just kind of doesn't stop. And it's all the species that, I would want to hunt. And the great thing, with my family being able to hunt, we have so many tags. There's just like, once hunting season kicks off, it doesn't stop because somebody always has a tag and we're just, rolling from one to the other. Last year, I was super selective on elk hunting and I passed on, I couldn't even tell you how many bulls. My dad killed a really nice big old bull. It wasn't like a trophy bull. And so, my dad took that bull, really great age, massive animal. And I just held onto my tag because I was really trophy hunting for age and rack, and didn't quite find what I was looking for. So I was okay with, filming my season without having harvested a bull. I did get one in New Mexico last year. So that kind of took the pressure off me to harvest an elk. And so that's the great thing about Wyoming, bow season. In my former state, if I had a rag 5 come in during bow season, I would have harvested it 100%. In Wyoming, no way. Like as a 3-year-old bull, he's getting a pass because I know I get to hunt rifle season. And so, being a resident here is just so much time to hunt, and it's so much fun that I don't really want to tag out unless it's something that I'm, really excited about, and being very selective about in my harvest objectives.
Yeah, absolutely. What is whitetail hunting like for you up there? Because I'm from Texas, so I imagine your whitetail hunting is way different than my whitetail hunting. So I'm curious, what's whitetail hunting like in Wyoming?
Well, we can't bait here, so that, makes things more challenging. Not in 2022, I harvested a whitetail buck. My husband and I both harvested whitetail bucks on public land. This year, we couldn't find a whitetail buck on public land. Like it was just the public land with the whitetail habitat is really limited in Wyoming because we just don't have a lot of great whitetail habitat on public ground. So whitetail is really tough on public. So like this year I booked with an outfitter and I'll hunt whitetail with an outfitter this year just because you really need to have private access for that. It's a lot harder. That DIY hunting, in 2022, we got really lucky, like really lucky. We had a hot doe and there was like a 10-acre stretch of woods with river bottom that was on public. And this hot doe brought in these 2 bucks and 2 days in a row we harvested. And if it weren't for that doe, I don't think it would have happened, but we just didn't have that luck in 2023. So 2023, we both hunted private land. My husband found a buddy who's aunt had land and I went with an outfitter. So, and it's just, it's whitetail's really tough in Wyoming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at least where we live.
I'm a Southern guy, so I'm getting into the whole Western hunting everything the past few years. I've been to Montana a couple times on a pronghorn hunt. And then this last year I got to hunt Eastern Flatland, Colorado. I had a mule deer tag. My buddy that was in camp, he had a whitetail tag. So I learned very quickly the difference in the grind between whitetail hunting and I'm speaking for, Eastern Colorado, but that in flat country basically, opposed to what I'm used to down here and what he was used to being from the Midwest. So
Yeah.
I'm playing all those whitetail hunting moments back in my head from last year, hearing you talk about it. I can only imagine how challenging it is on public ground up there. So
Yeah, if it weren't a habitat scarcity, the whitetail would be a lot easier. It's just a lot of the habitat where the whitetail are is privately held.
Yeah.
It's just part of it, and that's okay. Once in a while you have a shot at getting one on public, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does happen. It's just really hard, and you have to be dedicated, and you have to check those small pieces of habitat like daily.
And you're probably not the only one checking either.
You have competition, and so it's a little more challenging for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get that. What about so talk to me about your animals, your mules, because I guess you do pack trips with them and everything, and how's all that working for you?
Well, I've been doing it since I was a little girl. My first pack trips, I was 2 years old. So,
wow.
I'm not really sure what you're asking.
I guess so. Again, I'm coming from a very novice standpoint to stuff like that. I've never been on a backpacking or a horseback hunt like that. I actually have the opportunity to go on my first one this upcoming season, but I'm just curious about it. Like, what's it like? What are the do's and don'ts? What are the things that could make or break a trip in that sense?
Oh boy, there's so many things. Lifelong knowledge to try to regurgitate. What's it like? It's awesome. So it is, and I love packing with my mules. And obviously I have 10 horses and mules, but it is a lot of work, so when I do a DIY trip, just to kind of keep it in perspective, I don't have an outfitter packing my manis for me and
right.
loading my gear and weighing my packs, and I have to do all of that, or the people I'm with do it with me, like my dad or my husband or my cameraman. He's a really good hand. So you wake up, you brush out mules, and you put saddles on them, and it's a lot of time. Loading their gear, caring for them, making sure all of their loads are balanced, making sure cinches are tight, making sure bridgeons are tight, so you don't roll pack saddles, so that you don't have pack saddles slide too much, so that you don't have riding saddles slide, and then it's just watching them all day long. And it's almost like, when you're on a pack trip, my main concern is I never take my eyes off my animals. So it's really hard. I do obviously get to look at the landscape because they're walking, and so you're not looking at where you're stepping necessarily, but also when you're responsible for that many lives and that much gear and equipment, you're always looking for things that could possibly go wrong. So, if you're going down a steep decline and your pack string, your lead ropes are too long, you can have things like, legs step through the lead ropes, and then you can have wrecks and accidents. And so you're always checking and double checking gear, making sure your loads are tight. And so it's constant. It's I wouldn't call it a worry all day long, but you're constantly all day long. Okay, is this saddle tight? Is this, is this hitch tight? Is my lead ropes short enough? Are they long enough? Are these two personalities of animals, do they jive together? Do we need to split these two up? And, they all have kind of their own little personalities. We've got one that likes to kick the crap out of the other mules, so he goes on the end. And then we have some that, do better next to this other one, or, and so it's just managing personalities, it's managing gear. And then when you get to camp, you get to unload everything and put it all away. And then you have to make sure everybody has food and everybody has water. And then you have to put up your picket lines and, you just never stop. And then you get to start hunting, then the work starts. And so, it's a lot of work. But they take you to places that, without them, you're not going. And then they help you get out loads that you would really struggle with doing on your own. And so they're a blessing. Like I said, I don't know any different. This last fall was a lot of work because I don't hobble my mules. I rotational graze them because mules are really handy at running with hobbles, and they get big sores on their legs. And, when you're filming and you have animals with sores on them, it just doesn't look good. Yeah. So I rotational graze them, and I'm kind of over that. I had a gelding, and the mules don't quite bond with a gelding the way they do a mare horse. So I bought a little filly horse this last year so I can turn out all my mules and they won't leave my little horse. So I'm like trying to do things a little bit differently this year to make my life a little bit easier. Cause like last fall, I was literally waking up in 2-hour rotations to graze. Because the mules are super funny. Like if they have a good buddy that they're with, and you don't have that bell mare that they want to hang on, they'll take off and kind of go do whatever in God's green earth they want to do. So there's always a trick with them, and it's knowing the personalities and who can be together. And but it's a lot of fun. It's I try to balance my packs, and you're always balancing weight and then gear needs. So, I like to keep my packs between 50 and 80 pounds aside. And so, okay, well, what gear can fit in this pack versus that pack? And then you're dealing with bulk. And then, trying to make sure all of your basic needs are met, and that everything can get loaded in and out, and that you still have room to pack out meat and horns, and, or you make multiple trips. And so that's kind of like a high level of what it looks like when you pack in. When you go with an outfitter, it's a lot easier. You just show up and get on. Yeah. They worry about everything else.
For sure. What's the training or preparation process for those mules, like on your end before you ever take them on a trip? What's it look like preparing a new one for its first trip?
Oh gosh. So I bought 2 weanlings last fall that they're coming 2 years old this year. So a little over a year ago, I bought weanling mules there, which are babies, right? Little babies. And so in 2022, in that fall, when they were still nursing with their mothers, I had harvested a couple white-tailed deer, and I took the white-tailed deer skins out, and I took my baby mules and I put the deer on them and exposed them to the smell of meat and hides, and started doing a lot of work, what we call imprint training. So just kind of desensitizing them to balls and ropes and tarps. And so, when we're packing into a camp, we're throwing big tarps around, and there's gear everywhere, and it's kind of a bomb. And they really need to be pretty stoic and not non-reactive, to where they're going to stand there and be quiet while you're loading all of this stuff on them. So I started working with them last year, and then this 2023 fall, I packed the 2 babies in. At that point, they were yearlings. I packed them in, and they just came along. They didn't have any saddles on or anything like that. They just went along for the ride and just got to kind of see what their future job is going to be a part of camp, experience camp life. This year, as 2-year-olds, we started riding them for 10 minutes. On them and off of them. I will not be riding them this year, but we will this year as 2-year-olds put 25-pound packs on each side. So they'll be able to pack things like sleeping bags and cots and whatever, little light things, and kind of get their feet underneath them and learn how to pack. And then by the time they're 3 years old, I'll start light riding them, putting a little bit more weight on them. Mules grow very slowly, so we don't want to overload them. We want them to have a really good opportunity at being successful at their job. And then this year, if I harvest deer, I'll pack meat on them. I put deer meat on them last year. So fall of 23, all the deer we harvested, I took the head and the horns and I set them on the mules, and I actually took the boned out quarters and I put them in the panniard bags and put them on the mules, the little babies, and led them around. And so it's just trying to get them used to doing everything so that when they're actually older and they go to do their job, they already know how to do the job. It's just one more step, just adding a little more duration or more weight, or another element of a longer, time in the backcountry, that kind of thing. So it's easy for them to process and then avoid hopefully any what we call wrecks.
Yeah, man, that sounds like on top of everything else you're doing, that's a full-time job in and of itself.
It's a lot of work. So we have 2 that are aging out a little faster than I was hoping. I have the 3 2-year-olds, and really hoping my old horse and my really old mule, hoping that they would kind of last a little bit longer. But last fall was pretty hard on them. We used them a lot of miles, and we rented a couple of mules, which helped. So this year I just went and purchased 3 more mules, just because my older ones, they're struggling. I've got a 28-year-old mule that I've had since he was 6 months old, and he's on he has no teeth, so he can't eat grass. So he's on basically like oatmeal food.
Okay.
It's alfalfa pellets that we get wet and turn it into like a paste. And he's been eating that for a year and a half. And that's really hard when we pack him in, because we have to pack in his food and I have to be close to water. And it's just a whole nother, kind of element. So, managing their health and managing, all of these things is something you're constantly, back there working on, and, trying to prevent illness or injury. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. So I have a lot of animals now that we can rotate jobs, some jobs that are going to be easier, I'll be able to put my younger mules to do. And then those harder jobs that require more experience, I'll bust out those old guys and say, okay, I need my veteran crew. If I'm packed in 15 miles and I've got a bull elk down, I want my veterans on those trips. But if I'm packed in 5 miles and I'm packing out a little old deer, that's something that's a little better maybe for the babies. And so I can rotate heads out, if you will, and pick my little animal partners for the jobs we're doing.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So what's a typical, as far as how long you're out, what's a typical backpacking backcountry trip like that look like?
We don't usually spend less than a week when we pack in. I mean, usually we go in for a week, especially when we're filming episodes. As you know, in outdoor TV, you need a minimum of 3 days, and 5 days is usually about the sweet spot. So, if we're going to pack in, we're going to hunt usually 5 days minimum, maybe 6 or 7. And it just depends. But that's kind of the rough. I mean, if you're packing in 15 miles, you want to stay some time, because, you've got a good time investment getting in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. So out of all of the hunting opportunities that Wyoming has to offer, what's your favorite?
Oh, well, I don't know. I love elk hunting. So
Yeah.
That's it for me. Elk hunting is, there's not much that beats elk hunting. There's people that are sick for mule deer or whatever. I'm not. I'm an elk hunter. And so... yeah, that's it for me. Like, that's the iconic species of life, is hunting elk.
Yeah. Bow or rifle, both?
Both. But I love bow hunting elk just because I like calling elk. So I've been on the Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls pro staff since I was in my early 20s. And, last year, I don't even know how many bulls I called in. It was an awesome season. My dad passed. My dad missed. My husband passed. My husband missed. I passed. And we got no elk last year.
Oh,
bow
man.
season. We had a great season. It was a heck of a season. Had tons of fun. But that's also the beauty of Wyoming. Like, even if we don't get one bow season, we can come back and hunt rifle. And so we get to have those experiences calling elk and hunting elk and being picky. If we don't have something we want to notch our tag on, we just keep hunting and have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is being an experienced elk hunter like that, and as you've kind of alluded to through your description and everything, passing on certain bulls and everything. What's a shooter bull?
Pardon?
I'm sorry. What's a shooter bull? You were talking about how you
That just
passed on
depends.
bulls.
That depends on where you are.
Yeah.
Like how far you're in, what state you're in, what unit you're in. I mean, I've hunted Colorado and I've hunted legal bulls, which had 9-inch brow tines and they were 3x3s, So, I mean, I've hunted and harvested all spectrums. My biggest bull to date is 370 inches.
Oh, wow.
But for me, like for me last year in Wyoming, I was looking for age and also inches. So like for my dad, he shot a bull. I don't know how old the bull was. It was bigger than my horse. When we got it on the ground, it was massive. It was an old bull, but he didn't score anything. He had 18-inch fronts, big, heavy, but he was a big 5x5. And it just, was a great bull to take. I held on to my tag because I wanted to hold out for something that would have, like better scoring antlers. And when you have that many tags, you can kind of do that. But we really, this year, we're super selective on age more than anything. Just letting those younger bulls go. It's super fun to call in a young 5x5 and have them come in, and even a young 6, have them come into your calls and see them and just like know that, you have your tag's good for almost 2 months and you may as well just have a good time and hunt them and hope you get the giant, the giant old daddy, and if you don't, you don't, and you get to hunt the next year too. So that's kind of the beauty of it for me. Yeah, I guess my answer would be depends. If it was the last, few days of season and I saw a big old 5x5 that, had that age, 8-year-old bull, I'd probably take it. But when I have the season ahead of me, it's bow season, not so much. So my answer to that would always be, it depends, if it doesn't excite me, I don't want to take it. I want to just keep hunting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely understand that. I can't speak to elk hunting just yet. That's hopefully that backpacking backcountry trip that I get to take later this year. But at least with deer hunting, I've become more focused lately on the maturity of an animal opposed to the size of the horns on his head. So I'm definitely, that's my focus right now, is I want to kill mature deer, or we'll see what my criteria is, because I've never been elk hunting before. This will be my first year if I go, so we'll see what if my criteria
What
changes.
state are you going?
The opportunity I have is in Idaho. So and the area that we're going to, I'm going with a family friend up there. He's talked to me about it and everything, and it holds some decent bulls and everything. I think the one he shot last year was a 340.
That's a big bull.
Yeah.
If you could, that would be for me, that would be like my third biggest, right?
Really?
Like that's a big bull. So like, especially for your first hunt, just go have a good time. And if you have opportunity, take it.
Yeah.
Like I've just been elk hunting for so long that to me now, and where I live, I have the privilege of doing this all the time. For your first hunt, go have a good time. If you get an opportunity at a legal bull, take it. Like, and there's nothing to be ashamed of with that. I have lots of friends that take spikes and they're super stoked on that. I just have an opportunity where I live, in the lifestyle that I live, that, it's different. Like I told you, I've been to Colorado and taken legal bulls, which, have that brow tine restriction, and, they're young bulls, and I had a great hunt and, enjoyed the harvest, because I don't think anything eats better than elk. So, go and have a good time, and don't put so much pressure on yourself about score or age. Man, I would go for opportunity and have a good time and fill your tag.
That's kind of where I'm at, and that was my mindset, because last year was my first mule deer hunt that I ever went on, and the other added element to it for me is I'm bow only. I went bow only 10 years ago and haven't really looked back, and that's just my own personal choice. But so going up there going up to Colorado to hunt mule deer, it was like I'm taking the first shot I can with a bow, and I lucked out and killed a really nice buck. But down here in Texas, I hunt whitetails. We have a property that we manage for whitetails, so it's a whole lot different for maturity and everything down here. So and
you have a lot more controllable variables when you're managing your own land as well versus hunting public land. It's really tough to manage wildlife on public land if you pass on something feeling like you need to give it a year, the next hunter probably won't.
Yeah.
And so there's also that, aspect.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. You described your property as pasture. Can you hunt on your property or no?
Oh, for sure I could. There's just not a lot to hunt. We have on trail camera right now, we have 2 different mule deer bucks. Neither one of them have shed, but we've got 2 mule deer bucks. They're both, one's a 3x4 and one's a small 4x4. And they're not, the one deer, if I had a tag and he was around, I might take him with a bow. I don't think I'd shoot him with a rifle. But it's pretty small, by Wyoming standards. Technically, yeah, I absolutely could hunt it. I've had antelope move through there, but they don't really stay because I have a big, which is really unusual for Wyoming. I have a big timber gorge, which is full of ponderosa pines. So the mule deer really like it. The antelope, not so much. But, for Wyoming standards, it's a small piece. And the bucks just, they kind of come and go. And if I had the right buck on it, I would definitely pursue it, but it's not a hunting property. It's recreational. I have my gun range. I have a long range gun range on there and a pistol range, and it's mule pasture, more than anything. So
yeah. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, and this is part of your story that I neglected to research more than the rest. I apologize, but you also do a lot in the firearm world, don't you?
Yeah, so I shoot for Ruger. On the archery side, I shoot for bear, but on the firearm side, I shoot for Ruger, and I have since 2017. And I'm a firearms instructor, so I instruct pistol rifle, do some precision rifle training for people, coaching. I've done a little competition. I'm not what I would call myself as like a competitor in precision rifle. There's some women out there, and young women, that are incredible shooters. I started learning how to be more precise with shooting so I could be a better, more effective hunter. And so I invested a lot of time and training into understanding my firearms. And so, I'm mounting my own scopes. I'm getting my own data. I'm creating my own ballistic charts. I'm doing all of my own stuff. I'm truing my own trajectories at distance, and I'm, recalibrating information into my ballistic calculator as needed based on those hits or misses. And so I've learned how to do all of that because I feel like, you should never stop learning. And so with my firearm, especially in 2022, I had a crazy season where, if I couldn't shoot some pretty good distance, I wouldn't have had a successful season. Last year was a very humbling season for me. It's the first season since I've been producing my show that I've actually missed. And so that was a little humbling. I didn't train as much as I should have last year. And I'm actually going this afternoon to get my eyes checked. I think my eyes are going bad too. But so, I try to stay really, I want to know my firearm intimately. Like, I want to know how it handles the wind. I want to know how it does at distance. So, if I'm shooting a shorter barrel Ruger American, how does that hold up compared to, a longer barrel, like a 24-inch barrel rifle, like am I shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor versus 7 PRC? What is the difference in those in the wind? And, what's my velocity differences? And, a tenth or two, because I'm shooting Mules, that can make or break a hunt for me. And so I really try to learn as much as I can, to be as proficient as I can, so that if things go wrong, I know I've done everything I can to be my best. Prior to last year, I would say, I was batting 100% with a rifle. Last year, like I said, was a little humbling, and I did swing and a miss, and but it happens, and it just goes to show you that Mother Nature is always unpredictable, and living and hunting within your limitations and within your equipment limitations and conditional limitations is really important. And so I train so that I know better what those limitations are, so when I'm hunting, I don't miss.
Yeah.
Although it does happen.
No, I relate 100%. And I was when you first mentioned it, I know you went into a little more detail there at the end, but when you first mentioned it, I was going to ask you about it just because I'm, like I said, bow only. So in the archery world, I have the same principles that I apply. Like I am very meticulous with my stuff, and I want to eliminate any room for error that I possibly can. And then
Yeah.
last year, 2 weeks before my mule deer hunt, I miss a whitetail in Texas, and it like in my mind, I shouldn't have missed the shot. I knew the second that I squeezed the trigger that my arrow was wrong, and I knew that I messed up. And you put it well, humbling for sure.
Yeah, it's very humbling.
You put a lot of work into something, and not to make it sound like you feel like you're invincible, because no one is, and you shouldn't feel that way in
No.
my opinion. But you
Taking the shot should be the easiest part of what we do.
yes, 100%.
It should be the easiest part. Like getting there, going through the work, that's the hard part. Taking the shot should be the easiest part of what we do.
Yeah, that's the part that we have the opportunity to practice countless times, and
That's right.
to be the best at it. So no, I'm glad you said that. Like applicable not just to, I know I talk about archery a lot on our show just because that's my background, but it's applicable to rifles as well. And I got a little bit of an education on that when I went up to Colorado, because I was hunting rifle country, and I was there with a gentleman in particular that is very experienced with rifles and firearm shooting and everything. And so, when you spend a week in camp with somebody, you talk about everything. So he talked about firearms and practicing with firearms. And again, just me not having really hunted with a rifle for a long time. And then, before that, growing up and hunting with my dad who only rifle hunted, it was like, well, just go out there and you sight on your rifles and make sure they're good for deer season, and then you go deer hunting. It's like to be proficient with your equipment, there's so much more to it than that, and I got a good education on that just from him.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great leagues out there, like the National Rifle League's got a really good league. They do the NRL Hunter Series, and that's where you go to a stage and they give you a right and a left lateral limit, and they tell you how many targets, and you have to find them, range estimate them, build your shooting position, and shoot your 10 rounds. And you have 4 minutes to do it.
Wow.
And sometimes you have to move shooting position. Sometimes you're changing targets and target date distances. Just depends. But it really, kind of gears you up for going hunting with a rifle. It's also why I, take my bow to TAC events. Like last year, I shot 2 TAC events, one in Texas, one in Montana. And, I have a 3D course at my place and shoot my bow in my backyard almost every night in the spring and summer. I haven't been shooting, since I've been home this last February, this last week. I've only been home a week. I've been so sick. I haven't shot, but I'm getting some stuff done on my bow. I'm getting a new string put on. I got some new fletchings put on my arrows. And so it's, I really try to, take my equipment and make sure that it is as good as it can be, because, you only have one opportunity, and when you blow it, it hurts really bad. So yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've been going for close to an hour here. But before we wrap up our episode of this show, I wanted to ask you a couple things that we like to throw the way of first time guests that we have on our show here. And the first one being, and I'm excited to hear what yours is. It might be challenging just because you've hunted so many things in so many places, but we always ask what is one or some of your favorite hunting memories to date, and tell us a little bit about them.
No, well, my favorite hunting memories are elk hunting with my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's number one. That'll always be number one for me. I mean, I love going in with my mules. That's why I moved to Wyoming, because I get to hunt with my family and then my animal family. So, I mean, starting September, I'm packed in through the end of October with my mules, and my dad's coming and my husband comes. And, to me, that is the best time of year. Like, I love that time. So that's it for me. Number one. And I don't know. I mean, I love traveling, and I love eating food. And I like going all over the world too and traveling. But for me personally, like there's no place like home. And that's why I live in Wyoming. And man, if somebody said, well, you can never leave Wyoming again, you have to hunt only Wyoming the rest of your life, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm in the right place, because that'd be fine with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So having gone so many places and had all the opportunities that you have had, what's on your bucket list? What's something you haven't gotten to do yet that you would like to really go and do as far as hunting?
Oh, I have a lot of bucket list items. So next year, I've been saving for 3 years, almost 4 years. I'm doing my Fannin ram. So I have a Dall sheep, and next year I'm going to hunt Fannin sheep, which is a Dall sheep with gray hair, and it counts as your stone on your slam, and that's becoming one of the most expensive hunts that you can, go on. It's really become a rich man's hunt. You can't draw it really, so you have to, as an American citizen, purchase that. So that's one of my dream hunts, is to get that sheep, with the hopes that someday I'm blessed and I draw Rocky Mountain and deserts. So I love mountain hunting. So the sheep's on my list. Also, I have harvested one moose, but I want to go back for another moose next year as well. I've been fortunate. I've harvested a couple caribou, a couple mountain goats. Wow. I still want to do a brown bear. That's real high on the list. And then some other species that really fascinate me. I would really love to do some of the big five. So, my Cape buffalo. I really want to hunt Cape buffalo. That's kind of tall on the list. And kind of go for that. But that goes more with also the culture and the location. So I want to do Mozambique, which would be more of like a free range. It is a free range. It'd be more of it's a wilderness hunt. Yeah. So not that South African high fence, but more of that free range. So those hunts are pretty expensive. If you want that experience, you pay more for it. So those are more aspirational hunts for me. The price of brown bears now are so high that's real aspirational right now. So, the nice thing about living where I live is that I can save some money every year. And, I'm a big financial planner, and I feel like people really waste their life spending money on stupid crap like Starbucks. And if you were to avoid going to Starbucks every year, you might save yourself like $6,000. So
no joke.
I find little ways to chip away at my budget and my lifestyle, or make sacrifices that I can put that money away and, in 2 or 3 years, save money for maybe 4 years. Like with my sheep, has been a 4-year savings to do that hunt. And so I don't ever want to be this person that's like, well, I can't afford to do that. My theory is well, how long do I have to save to do that? And what do I have to sacrifice financially? Does that mean I don't go to Target? Oh, well, you know what I mean? So I try to tick off those things that I want to do, because I really want to live life. I really would love to go to Spain and hunt some ibex as well. So those are, those mountain species are just incredible. And so those are all on my list.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. And you have it sounds like a realistic outlook on, if you are going to be able to obtain it, how to do it, which is awesome. For some it's no more than a dream, and, nothing wrong.
It doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be, and nothing wrong with it just being a dream, but
doesn't have to be.
And
you just have to be, what are you willing to give up?
What are you willing to give up? And then,
if you're that guy that buys an energy drink every morning and you save that $3.50 every day. Plus, if you're chewing Copenhagen or whatever other crap you put in your body, or instead of, stop drinking alcohol for a year and see how much money you save, and, all this stuff, right? Like, you can save money in so many ways to actualize your dreams. The only one that tells you can't is yourself, and you're lying to yourself. Yeah. So you just have to figure out what you have to do, what you have to sacrifice, where you have to work more. Maybe you have to get a second job. I mean, I work and save and plan, and Dave Ramsey has this saying, if you live like no one else, so later you can live and give like no one else. And I will sacrifice everything to save money, and then I go do what I want. And that means, you don't get to do all the things and you don't drive the fanciest cars and all that stuff. You live with less so that you can do more, and that's a philosophy I've taken with my life. And if I hear someone say they can't afford to do something, it just annoys me. I'm like, no, you're just no discipline.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what it comes down to for sure. No, very well put. Well, the last question I have for you, and then we'll wrap it up. You, as we mentioned at the beginning, you've been in this industry for a while, and this industry is a lot different now than it was when you started. You undoubtedly have had to change, with the industry, because this industry changes quick, in my opinion. What is your advice for somebody who is wanting to get into it, who is wanting to pave their way into the outdoor industry, whether that's being on a show, having a podcast, whatever it might be? What's your advice for them?
Be you. Do what you do best. Nobody else is you. And I go through this a lot. I struggle with, it's kind of like an imposter syndrome. And I just went through this, literally had this conversation with Ruger last month. And, I'm a firearms instructor, and I teach and I do these competitions and I would do all these things. And when you're so strung out and you're trying to be a great hunter and you're trying to be a great competitor and you're trying to be a great instructor and you're trying to do all these things, you can't really, you're the jack of all trades, but master of none in some capacities. And so, they sat me down this year at SHOT Show and they're like, look, Kristy, be the best you. Like this is your space, your backcountry, your Western big game hunting. Own it, be it. Don't stress about this other stuff. We have competitive shooters that are shooting 3-gun, that are shooting, long range competitions. We have firearms instructors where that's them. My advice to everyone is there's no one else that's like you. I mean, there's very few women in this industry. I can't name one other woman in this industry that has a TV show platform, if you will, that has the mules, that does the backcountry thing in the same way that I'm doing it. I'm not saying that there's not other women that are doing it, because there are, but that has a show. Right. And, so I think just be you. I mean, I just met a girl last week on Instagram. She raises hounds and she's a badass. She lives off grid. Like, I don't want to live off grid, but she has an awesome story, just be you. If your awesome story is, that you have a farm in Iowa and you have big deer that you're growing and, you're taking trail camera pictures of them and you're doing that and, you live that story, tell that, just bring people into what is normal for you and embrace the uniqueness of yourself, because everyone can tell when you're not authentic. Yeah. And anybody that knows, they'll be able to sniff it out when you're fake. So just be real, be genuine, and be real with your story and be human. When we all make mistakes. And so I try to show those on my show when I, misses or, whatever, like it happens and we're all fallible and, don't try to be anybody else. And Instagram's a highlight reel. There's highs and lows. And so you have to be mindful of that as well, that everybody goes through seasons of highs and lows and that's normal too. Yeah. But you just got to keep showing up. Exactly.
No, it's a grind for sure. And, it won't always be easy, but that's one thing that I know we've taken to heart through our journey and everything, is just not caving to, just what's out there that sells, because that's not genuine. And in my opinion, there's no value in that. So, the people who want to see what you have to offer will follow you because of what you're doing, not because of who you're trying to be. So excellent advice. Very well put.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the best journey you can do for yourself, is just to be happy with who you are. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Kristy, tell everybody where they can find all of your different things that you have going on.
Oh, my social media is so easy. I made it just so simple. I have one handle across all platforms.
There you go.
And it's my name. It's Kristy Titus.
Easy
so
enough.
Instagram, Facebook, X, It's all Kristy Titus. I do have two YouTube channels or two channels on CarbonTV. One is for Pursue the Wild and one is for our Wyld Life. My podcast is on CarbonTV as well, and that is Wyld and Uncut. But that also streams everywhere else you would stream like an audio only podcast. It is available in video. So I film my podcast live on location. So if you want to watch the conversations with people that I have around the world, go to my YouTube channel. That's the video part is not on Carbon, but the audio part is. But I invite everybody, kind of tune in and check it all out and, be part of the journey. If you do have Pursuit channel, my show airs third and fourth quarter on Pursuit as well as Wyld TV. It did air, or it is airing in quarter one on Pursuit as well. But it's also on Pursuit Up, and then Wyld TV Plus. So it's kind of like all over the place.
Yeah.
I also air and stream on X, which used to be Twitter, Facebook. And so I try to put my content as many places as you can. So just Google my name and, go to my website, pursuethewild.com, or just Google my name and, check it out right there. Everything's on my website. It's all embedded in there. So if you want one place to find the podcast and all of the shows, it's all there.
Awesome. Yeah, easy enough. Well, thank you again for joining us on Fall Obsession podcast and sharing your story with us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun, Sam. Thank you.
Absolutely. For our Fall Obsession listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode. Be sure that you follow Kristy and her platforms and everything that she's got going on. Follow along with the journey. And be sure you're following Fall Obsession. We are also on CarbonTV. You can find us on our website, fallobsession.com. And our podcast also plays anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. So wherever you're listening or tuning in, be sure that you guys follow and subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for listening. I'm back again next week for another episode, and I'll catch you guys then.